Wheaton Arts is this. We're going to find out the full history from the people who actually work here. But it is known in New Jersey as being this space where people blow glass. And I have always been so curious about glass. I studied ceramics, and right next to the ceramic studio was a glass blowing studio. And I was always really curious, but at the same time, nervous about it. So, you know, heat, things blowing up, all of this stuff, you don't know what can happen. It's kind of out of your control. So today, I am going to actually make something. I have two people, Katie and Kendall, are going to be helping me and guiding me to actually create something. I'm making a tumbler, and I cannot wait to learn about this process and actually be immersed in it. Admittedly, I'm a little nervous, but that's all part of the process, right? So let's get this party started.
I define creativity as life. It is in every aspect of who we are and what we do. When we live by thoughts of, I want to, but I can't, it creates a lot of frustration and excuses, which aren't anything about expansion. In this space, I get to meet incredible humans that will push me out of my comfort zone, help me face my fear of heights, fire, and so much more. They will give me a window into their world to show what they do and why. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hollis Citron. Join me as I get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Why don't you quickly introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of go from there in this process. So.
Sure. Hi, I'm Katie Murphy. I am the studio coordinator here at Wheaton Arts, and we're going to be working today with Kendall Frank.
I'm Kendall Frank. I'm a resident of Philadelphia, work here at Wheaton Village, making glass. I get to teach and do production for the studio, and it's a ton of fun.
I'm going to ask you the question that I ask everybody, which is, Katie, how do you define creativity?
It's funny because I feel like you make that such a simple statement, right? And it's really complex, I think, right? But I think, I don't know, I mean, I think it's the way that you think about art, you think about life, the way that you interact with people. I think every moment is a moment of creativity, and the way that you look at the world can be a really kind of inspiring and creative thing. Yeah.
I would say problem solving. I see creative problem solving as two things that really cross over. So yeah, just dealing with life, what comes at you, what's happening around you, how you interact with your environment, I guess, too, similarly to what Katie was saying.
Yeah.
You can do that in your own, make choices that defines creativity.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too, because I feel like we take for granted as artists, we're like, well, everything's creative, and I think people don't always think about that, right? But I think it is, for sure.
You just made me go, my head was like, yes, no, it's so true, because what this space is about expanding this definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush, because there's that quote unquote societal definition of how people view creativity, which is all about drawing and painting. So people, I know for me, get a visceral reaction when you say what you do. For me, I say I'm an art teacher. I've been an art teacher. I, do all these things with this realm. They physically, and I'm curious in your world, they say I can't draw or paint. And it's just like this. And I'm like, it's not about drawing or painting. So that's what we're kind of exploring here. And actually, before you tell me how to get started, when you say what you do, is there any kind of visceral reaction that people have?
I think it's evolved a little bit. I tend to not tell people right away that I'm a glass blower, unless it's like a doctor and I'm like, oh, my side hurts. It's probably from my job. But I think people understand a studio coordinator kind of being this, coordinating a physical space, maintaining people, managing people, maintaining equipment, all of those things. People don't necessarily understand, like, oh, you blow glass for a living, like what could that actually possibly mean?
Oh my God, that's such an important point that you just made to me, because you're putting it in a sense of, you give people what they want in the sense of what they can understand.
Yeah.
And then you can have a deeper conversation when that conversation is needed, but it's not anything that you feel you need to I don't know if it's the right word, but brag about it, or just say, this is what I do, because that creates a whole other thing.
I think it's more like a dance sometimes than a creative, artistic process. But I think the biggest question I get a lot is like, well, how do you make a living doing that? Like, how do you make a living being an artist? And it's like, well, there's a million different ways. And I think in our studio we have like 8 or 9 people doing it in 8 or 9 different ways too.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So what do I need to do to get ready?
Yeah, okay. So we have this kind of giant stack in the center of our building.
What is it?
So it is really referencing the history of South Jersey production. Glassworking really kind of came to this kind of production that was actually successful here in Millville, Vineland area. And part of that was we had some really great silica sand. And so they were able to melt glass in New Jersey with some really nice, beautiful greenish, blue, clearish glass. And we were able to start production style blowing. To make sure that factories could kind of keep up with that, they had all of these furnaces that were fired by wood or by coal. And there was a lot of smoke and off gas from that. So these giant stacks were created to get all of that smoke out of the building. Right now, we use natural gas, so we don't have that constant heat source of kind of debris floating up. But it's really, I think, a monument to the history of successful production glass making.
And that was in what year?
At least a couple hundred years ago, yeah.
A little while ago.
Yeah.
Wow, because you think of like Corning glass. It's kind of like you hear that name a lot, but since we moved to Jersey, you're right, it's kind of like you hear of this space, and what you guys offer here is such an incredible like space for people to really learn and be immersed.
I think of it like this fantasy land of inspiration from crafts. So we have paper making and flame working and pottery and all of these old crafts that have been around for a long time, have a huge culture and history and importance to them, and you can watch artists work contemporarily and also look at the history. And so it's this really unique balance that doesn't exist a lot of other places.
Yeah. Pretty amazing. Okay, do I need to, on myself, do anything to get ready?
Nope.
Should
So you're
I take
wearing
these off?
If you want to wear those, you can wear those. I love to wear earrings in the studio just because
I can keep them on. Otherwise, I feel naked.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah. I'm like, if I'm gonna have dirty pants and a dirty shirt, at least I can have my fun earrings on.
Exactly.
So we'll have you come into the bench.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the equipment and the tools.
Okay.
So this is kind of like your workstation. We've got a couple of different points of this workstation. And so this is a steel blowpipe.
Okay.
This is how we're going to inflate the glass. We've transitioned a little bit with the pandemic and so I'm going to attach my hose to the end of this and we'll inflate while you're using the tools.
Okay.
Really, other than this blow hose, which is something that's been around for maybe about 50 years, other than that, everything is pretty traditional for hundreds, if not thousands of years. A lot of the equipment has stayed the same. If it works, it works. So you're sitting in the bench. We have this steel blowpipe.
So wait, so before this, did people literally blow into the pipe? That's what would happen before that. Okay.
So often we would have a partner or an assistant blowing on the end of the pipe, following as you're turning.
Okay.
So when you're sitting at the bench, you really only want to be using your left hand on the pipe.
Okay.
And I always recommend turning behind my hand. Part of that reason is we're going to have around a 2,000 degree glob of glass here, and we get some residual heat on the pipe up here. So turning behind my hand is always a great space. Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll even see we can roll back and forth, just getting used to that constant turning. While we're doing this, you're going to grab the tools with your right hand. So there's a couple different tools.
Okay.
We've got those tweezers, which you just touched. You can pick those up.
Okay.
Those are something that we're going to use to apply some water and remove the piece from the pipe.
Okay.
So with that, what you're going to do is pinch. So we've got a nice pinch there. So this is like, you use this for a bunch of different stuff. We can sometimes create constriction lines with this, so you can see by squeezing slightly. And picking it up this way is great because you can really adjust your forearm. So we'll have you sometimes come on the side like that.
Okay.
We might have you angle your jacks different ways. So in that angle, you're able to manipulate your forearm comfortably without twisting it too much.
Okay.
So we'll put that back the way it was with the blades behind you.
Okay.
And then one more tool at the bench right now. Behind you, there's a bucket with 2 wooden blocks in it. So we'll grab one of those. this is how we're going to initially shape the glass. So this is a block made from fruit wood that's been soaking in water, and we're going to shape it into this nice orb on the bottom of this pipe. That's going to give us a uniform space to go as well. So this is all of the stuff that we'll be using at this bench.
Okay.
We'll also be constantly using this reheating chamber. So we'll have about a 30-second working time before the glass seizes up to room temperature.
Okay.
So it's rapidly cooling down from around 2,000 degrees. And so we have this reheating chamber here. So between each step, what I'll do is just take a heat, melt in some of that glass, so we can manipulate it again.
Okay.
We'll see how you're feeling. If you're feeling comfortable, we'll have you take a couple heats too. So the one thing we haven't talked about at all, which I think is important, is the furnace is full of clear glass. And so we have the option to apply color. And we thought we would take you back to the color room and take a look and see what colors you might want to apply on the piece.
Ooh, love color.
Back here we have a variety of different colors. And you'll see on the fronts of each container, some of these containers are out, but you'll see on the fronts of the container what the color looks like. So some of the colors look pretty radically different when they are in the granule form versus when they're blown out. Part of the reason that is it's just kind of unmelted still. So this is the same chemical makeup as our clear glass, which is silica, soda ash, and lime. The gold ruby in its name. That color comes from a nice rich hint of gold. I like to think of it like rose gold jewelry. You get that little tinge. But some things are kind of surprising. Whites can be made with titanium or zinc, or sometimes even lead. Blues often are made with cobalt. And so we have this kind of like science lesson in our heads while we're thinking about how these colors also could go together.
This is so much resonating because of ceramics.
Exactly,
So
it's the same.
Glazes, you're like triggering all these. I haven't made glazes in so long. Lithium was really dangerous. They made the coolest glazes.
Really?
But you would feel really funky after.
What colors?
They just really gave really cool textural effects. And they made everything really bright. So but if you were in and not wearing a mask at all, you were like, why do I feel like kind of woozy?
I mean, that's why we buy all of our color pre-made from a factory. We could be mixing that color ourselves, but I'm like, I don't want to be mixing lead.
Why? Okay. Wow.
So yeah,
how many colors?
I think 2 or 3 colors is nice. Any more than that, and they sometimes muddy together.
Yeah.
And we can even think about some of these colors are smaller granules, look more like sand. Some are much larger that look like kind of like sprinkles, which will look more like dots on the surface.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go with your suggestion of the gold ruby. What do you think of like the green kind of texture, like the celadon? Might be nice.
Yeah, we could play with these together because that's a nice opaque, so we could layer these on top of that.
I got to go into the secret room.
The secret room.
Yeah.
Endless storage here. What's interesting about Wheaton is it's really this kind of magical place for artists to experiment and make, and we have this fellowship where I think it's about 6 to 12 artists a year come for 3 to 6 weeks at a time. Most of them have a background in glass, but they don't always, and they really have this freedom to explore and to play. So they get to make whatever they want in that time period. With the support of this facility, and being such a big facility with so many different processes, it's surprising what people come up with. We had an artist who was making castings of her body, another artist who is heavily performance-based and is working on this glass opera, working with an opera singer and creating glass, and they're doing some pretty beautiful stuff, and so exciting all over the place. Not stuff you always think of when you think of glass.
I love it, and you both kind of do something that's kind of like neon-y. Almost. Because when I was looking at your, just in the sense that it looked like threads or... Yeah,
I've worked with neon artists before. It's one of those processes that I'm like, I want to learn this, and we have the setup here, so we're getting to it. I think glass blowing, once you're working with the molten glass, is a lot like tapping your head, rubbing your stomach, maybe jumping on one foot. It's a lot of hand-eye coordination. But I think of it more of as a dance. So you're just kind of flowing with the material, responding to it.
You said that in the beginning, and I think that's kind of going through my head. It's a dance. And what's beautiful, too, is that, again, it's such a communal, it's if I, or when I'm like, I need help. Obviously, it's like
Yeah,
you're
we'll be here.
you're here, and then each person kind of has their job, and then it switches. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go grab some glass out of the furnace.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab a hotter pipe now. This is hollow. It's kind of like a giant straw.
Okay.
And I'm going to grab glass out of the furnace. So I'll just open it up just so you can kind of feel some of that heat. Ooh, it's pretty toasty. It's around 2,000 degrees. It's around 4 by 4 feet, and it's only about 12 inches deep. So what I'm going to do is go in there and grab a little bit of this glass. And at this temperature, it's pretty goopy, like a molten pot of honey. So I'm going to come on out.
Ooh.
We've got this nice glowing mass.
So time-wise, you have a pretty short period of time before it gets cool.
Yeah, and you really don't want to be in there for very long because it gets pretty toasty. So I'm going to cool off this pipe, and then I will pass it to you over by the table over there.
Should I go over there?
I'll meet you over there.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to make sure that we're using as much of a mass of this material as possible. So I'm just going to kind of peel it all off the end of the pipe like that. And I'm going to stand on this side of you. I'm going to grab behind my hands, and we're going to go into the green. So you're going to tap and turn. You can already feel it's getting pretty stiff.
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is probably go around the full rotation like this, melt that in, and then we'll do another layer of this green. So that looks good.
So go in.
Yep, keep turning in your hands and watch your hip. And we'll put that down. You can slide your hands back. And now you're just like roasting a little marshmallow right there.
Wow, that is hot.
It's hot. Yeah.
Really hot.
That glass is already melted in, super gooey now. So you can slide your left hand forward, lift up, keep turning. And we're going to go back into that celadon. Yeah, that nice green. And you'll see it's a little bit gooier. It's picking up a little bit more of that material. You can even press some. It's great.
So pretty.
It's still mesmerizing to me. It's this like beautiful gooey mass.
Isn't that cool? It's like, because it's different every time, right?
It is. Okay, that looks great.
Okay.
So we'll melt that in.
Okay.
So same exact steps. Keep turning the pipe, place it down, slide your hands back. And you can turn a little bit slower too. So I like to turn with my breath. I like to make this like a whole like meditative experience for myself. Sometimes I feel like sometimes it sounds a little corny. But
No,
I
it
believe
doesn't. It doesn't, because it's very much, it's like having a walking meditation. This is, because if you're like, you get out of breath.
You get stressed.
You get stressed,
Yeah. You shouldn't be stressed when you're making art.
Shouldn't be stressed.
Okay, we're going to slide out. You can slide your left hand forward a little bit more, lift up, keep turning. And we'll roll across the layers here now. And so part of the reason we put these out is so that we don't fully cover up that first layer. And so you can roll back and forth a few times. Make sure even to bring your hand up a little bit. We'll get some on the very bottom here. Great. Okay.
Okay.
Melt that in.
Ooh,
Keep
this
turning.
Just keep turning. Just keep turning.
Uh-huh.
Just keep turning.
Exactly. Always be turning.
The meditative.
All right. So I'm going to grab the pipe back from you.
Okay.
I'm going to have you sit down at the bench and grab this smaller wooden block.
The one in the water?
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm just going to come over to this table here and just peel a little bit more of that glass off so we have as much as possible for you to use. And we're going to work on getting this smoothed out into, kind of think of it like a Q-tip shape. So we're going to round out the top here. And so you can bring the block to meet it. You can even grab a little bit further up on the block. That's great. Okay. So we're going to have you dunk that block in the water. So what we've done so far, we've got our colors on. We have a small bubble inside of there, like a large peach pit. This is kind of interesting. It's like tortoise-shelly right now. And what we're waiting for is waiting for this glass to get around 1,000 degrees so I can grab another layer on the surface.
Okay.
Part of the reason we want to wait until it's around 1,000 degrees is you have this color on there, I like how it looks. We kind of have this swirl. We want to make sure that that swirl doesn't melt in or get deformed. If it's too hot, the bubble could collapse on the inside. If it's too cold, the glass could break off into the furnace, and then everyone for the next couple days would have little tiny wisps of this color. And we obviously can't physically touch it when it's 1,000 degrees.
Right.
But we can kind of see some changes. So you can see that the glass is no longer glowing orange on the rod here.
Right.
I can also see that it's not like moving back and forth.
Right.
So at 1,000 degrees, it's totally solid. So if I tap it on metal, it doesn't leave any dents.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is grab another layer of clear glass, seal in your color.
Okay.
And then we're going to grab the next size up block and just shape those layers together and start inflating into a cup.
Okay.
Cool?
So what do I do?
I'll have you grab the next size block, and I'll be right back with some glass.
Okay.
All right, so you got a little bit more glass now.
I love that. Respect for the material.
We're gonna just homogenize these layers a little bit. We've got that 1,000 degree layer, and then we've got this fresh gather of 2,000 degrees on top. What I want to do is make sure that they're nice and even in temperature before I inflate some. That looks great. Okay, so next tool. I'm gonna take a heat. When I come back, I'm gonna have shaped a little bit of the bottom here.
Okay.
What I'm gonna have you do is use your jacks, so the tool closest to you. And
This one was
other way. Yeah.
Okay.
What we're gonna do is going to stretch your arm out and just cool the bottom a little bit with this blade. And we'll have Kendall here with the paddle just to make sure that the residual heat doesn't get too hot on your arm.
So I touch this.
Yep, so I'm gonna take a heat. When I come back, what you're gonna do is just kind of cooling and shaping the bottom here. All right, so I'll come back in a second. It'll be a little bit hotter. And so what we're trying to focus on is making sure that the bottom, we exaggerate the thickness on the bottom so that when we're inflating it and expanding it, it doesn't get too thin. Because that's the part that is the furthest in, goes the first in, last out, so it gets a little bit hotter. So by using a tool to force the air away from it, we make sure that, you know, it's not so thin that an ice cube's gonna crack it if you put it in the glass.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm gonna start that shape on the table here, and then I'll come over to you. Okay. So you can follow that cone shape, and Kendall may adjust your hand a little bit. It's a nice long reach.
Yeah,
That's great.
You can kind of loosen a bit how you were before.
Mm-hmm. And you're welcome to help me turn.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're kind of following that turning.
So everybody, this is giving off so much heat.
Just a 2,000 degrees,
Only
just
2,000
a little
degrees.
bit. Okay, it's beautiful.
Okay.
So just some light puffs of air. What we've done is expanded the wall thinness here, given you a kind of reasonable amount of space, and still kept that thickness at the bottom. So the next thing we have to do before we start really shaping this cup is create a constriction line at the top here.
Okay.
So before I go in and take a heat, we'll see y'all tomorrow.
You guys.
Before I go in and take a heat, we'll just kind of do a dry run.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is bring your hand like that. Yep. You're going to come right past the pipe, so right here, and we're going to just start to squeeze gently. And when I come back, it's going to be a little bit hotter, so it's going to feel easier. The gentle is important. Turning, I think, is more important than squeezing. It's this really kind of delicate motion.
Okay.
And what you're going to be doing, I'm going to take a heat. What you're going to be doing is really trying to create the breaking point on this piece. I think that this constriction line is really similar to those lines you find in a bar of chocolate where you can snap the individual pieces. We want to make sure that like this top snaps off there and doesn't crack down the side of your glass.
It's like the serrated edge.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
good. Yeah.
You were talking about how when you were in college, you had some fear revolving around the glass studio at your school, but I was just saying, yes, it can be scary, but you can kind of overcome that fear and really respect the material.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like working with it.
Yeah, because you really have to be safe.
Right
Yeah.
there. Beautiful. And as the glass starts to stiffen up, you can start to squeeze a tiny bit more. And yep, that adjustment's good, Kendall. We're going to angle out a little bit. That's creating a nice valley there. Okay, great. I'm going to do that one more time. So I'll take a little bit more heat. And we can put some wax on those.
Yeah.
So in the top corner of your tool bench is this kind of blob of wax. This is the only tool we really put wax on. And part of the reason we do that is that hot metal and hot glass stick to each other. So by putting a little bit of wax on, it's acting as this lubricant. It's not going to stick.
Okay.
It may cause some fire to spark up,
Okay.
which I just think makes you look cool. Okay, so
do
we'll
I
pick
put
up that
this
tool
up
again.
again?
Yeah, we're going to go on that neckline one more time.
How's the hand feeling?
Yeah, for
Warm?
me, it's warm, but
Protected?
it's okay.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we can come off that line. Okay, next step. It's starting to get to cup shape. What we're going to do next is I'm going to come out of the reheating chamber and elongate some. When I come back, you're going to use your jacks, that multi-tool, the tool you just used,
Yes. Okay.
and you're going to bring your hand flat. We're going to straighten the walls of the cup.
Okay. This is like working on a potter's wheel. This is like shape. Okay. It really is.
There's some trough somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Flat. But the beauty of this is that it's more immediate.
Mm-hmm.
Ceramics is so much more of a process, which is my love-hate relationship with it.
My mom did ceramics, did some pottery for a while, and I was trying to imitate the shapes that she made out of ceramics and glass.
Ooh.
And it was so frustrating because I'd be like, well, how did you do that? And it's a completely different setup
Yeah.
to the setup of working with glass.
I love that kind of challenge, though. That's interesting to see how much you can push the material to do certain things, because each material has certain restrictions.
It does.
So that's an interesting challenge. Actually.
It was fun, yeah. Yeah, I think one of my favorite tools we just used was this gravity, right? We've elongated this into a nice form. Okay, so I'm going to have you ride the sides, and I'm just going to give you some really gentle air while we're doing this. Yep, and we're turning.
Okay, we're turning.
You stay there following that turning.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great.
Ooh, so everybody, can you hear that sizzle?
Mm-hmm. That's that nice beeswax melting on your jack blades there. Okay, that looks awesome. Okay, so we have, kind of working from the top down, the top of your cup, which will open on the other side, the walls of your cup. Now we have to flatten the bottom. So this is where we come in, where all three of us will kind of be working simultaneously.
Okay.
You're going to have the jacks in the same position on the side.
Okay.
Kendall will be putting pressure on the bottom, and I'll be blowing to put pressure from the inside so that we get a nice crispy corner.
Okay.
So if we all have equal pressure,
Okay.
that'll give us a nice corner. Equal pressure and the right heat, in theory, works. And it's nice how we've gotten some kind of like swirling and stretching of those colors.
Yeah.
It's always so interesting to see what colors people choose, because I feel like I personally have a pretty limited color palette, and I'm like, I would have never chose those, and now I'm like, now I want to try this.
Well, people are drawn to certain colors.
Mm-hmm.
There's like an innate drawing, like purples. The cooler colors are innate for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you ladies. What colors do you like, Kendall, that you're drawn to?
I mean, so many. I think it depends on mood too, and even like season. Like for a while, I was really into blues, but now that it's becoming autumn, I am desiring more like yellow, sunny colors.
Oh, interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all going to go on together. Here we
Ooh,
go.
there's the fire.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Am I putting enough pressure?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's great. Look at that. We're halfway to a cup.
Halfway to a cup, everybody.
All right, that's beautiful.
Okay.
Okay. So, I feel like you're getting pretty comfortable. I think we'll have you hang out over here with Kendall.
Okay.
And so what you're going to do is you're just going to flash this piece, and we'll have Kendall next to you in case anything strange happens. So
what does flashing mean?
flashing is you're going to come out of the bench, and what you're going to do is just hang out for about 3 seconds. Come all the way out, hang out over here for about 3 seconds. Purpose of flashing is keeping this entire piece around 1,000 degrees. You want to make sure that it doesn't get much colder than that because it'll crack. You want to make sure it doesn't get much hotter than that because we don't want to deform anything you've already created.
So I'm just spinning when I'm sitting here. I'm not using any tools.
Nope, just spinning.
Spinning.
So we'll have you come out of the bench and
Okay.
start flashing, and I'm going to make the piece that we'll transfer this onto so we can open up the
You'll
top.
stand where I am. I'm gonna get on the other side.
Okay.
So you'll hang out here. We'll just go in for about
This is my last gather.
3 seconds or so, and then we'll come all the way out back to the bench. So, help you transfer like so. Yeah. And really, so just careful about halfway up, starting to get warm. She might be faster than us.
Okay.
Alright, this is great. So I'm going to take one for you and then come back and have you help me turn again.
Okay.
So I've created this temporary connection that's kind of like a little, it kind of looks like this Q-tip shape. We've got this nice little dome with a little point at the top. Let's
Okay.
do one more flash. And I want my glass to be a couple hundred degrees hotter than yours so it sticks but doesn't melt and fuse to it together. This is going to be temporary. So I'm going to come on over and place this on your center axis. And then I'm going to have you, after we place this, pick up your tweezers.
Tweezers these.
Yep.
Okay.
And what you're going to do is reach into the bucket behind you,
So keep
pinch up some water. So you'll pinch them closed, keep them closed, and then you're going to stab it right at this tiny little constriction line we made. Yep.
Go for one more scoop of water.
Okay.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, it was.
All right, and then one more stab. That was perfect.
So you're shocking that constriction line, telling the glass where it should break. So what we're going to do now is just slide on over,
And then flip your tool in your hand.
and you're going to tap.
So grip down here. Great. And then give me a really good bump right there.
Okay.
That was it.
Ooh.
And so your constriction line was beautiful. It broke where it was supposed to break. And so the last step of this cup is opening it up so that it has a function, right?
Okay.
Right now it's a really small and sharp hole, which
Right.
isn't really what you want to be drinking out of.
That's not, yeah.
And so what we've done is transferred it to this pipe. And what we're going to do next, I'm going to get this a little bit hotter, and you're going to bring your jacks inside and lift up gently, and that will open up the wall of this cup.
So do they stay closed?
You'll stay pretty close, and we might stretch a little bit as they're opening.
Like a pelican beak, isn't it?
I like that, yeah.
That's what I keep.
Very pleasant.
I keep seeing that with like.
Yeah.
It's an interesting, I feel like it's a comfortable motion for me, but it is a strange thing to explain. Like, you're feeling this kind of tension releasing and pulling in your forearm a lot, which with a lot of other art practices, you're not necessarily like controlling your movements with minute pressure in your forearm.
Yeah. That's so funny that you said that. I was just having a conversation with a friend today. She's like, my husband got a tattoo on his forearm. She's like, your forearm is from your elbow to your wrist, right? I'm like, yes. She's like, it's not from your shoulder to your elbow. I'm like, no.
Probably taught that
But then
in
she
science
made me-
class at some point, but
Then she made me think for a minute. I'm like, is it?
all right. So we're gonna
Inside.
turn nice and evenly, and you can go inside, and we're just gently. That's beautiful. We're just gently opening it up. You're getting the dance. You got the dance of glass
Dancing,
blowing down.
everybody. This is so much like a potter's wheel in a sense, but it's sticking now. So
Right.
that's, I dip it in the water.
Yep. So we're actually going to come on the outside in a second. That means that we're kind of cooling down too much. So what I'm going to do is take a heap, and then we'll bring the blades on the outside just to smooth out that surface a little bit.
Okay.
But we can put a little bit more wax on those blades if you wanted to grab some in the corner over there. Okay. Ready?
Ready.
And so, you know, we're going to turn nice and
on the
slow, really just kind of to avoid centrifugal force flaring this into a hat of some sort. So we'll go on the outside, turning nice and slow. Look at that. We got a cup.
Wow.
Yeah, we could go back on the inside too. Open up the top a tiny bit more.
Yeah, so you're kind of pressing up against the top. Squeeze those together a little bit more. And
That's
use
great.
that flat
Yeah.
surface. Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay,
So cool with the flashing.
That's
so
your
we have a cup,
Wow.
but we're not done yet.
Okay.
What's that we were just watching? 10 Commandments. Knolling.
Oh, knolling, yeah.
Who is that?
Oh my gosh. I can look it up.
I'll send you a link to it. It's this artist, and he has this amazing video about kind of knolling, studio preparation, what you should do, kind of best practices. And then there's one part where he talks about, you know, making sure everything is clean and organized, and he's like, but we're not done yet. But we're not done yet. And I always think with glass, like, but we're not done yet. There's another step. But we're not done yet. There's another step. So even though we have a cup, and it's a cup that's, I think, a nice, beautiful shape, even, consistent, we're not done yet. Just like ceramics, this has to sit in a kiln.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of heating up to fire glaze, what we're doing is we're slowly cooling it down,
Yeah.
making sure that the coefficient of expansion, or how that glass contracts and expands as it heats and cools, doesn't change the thickness too drastically. If we were to just pop this cup off and break it off in that container, what would probably happen is in about 20 minutes or so it would start cracking apart because we've got varying wall thicknesses.
Right.
So what we're going to do is put this in a kiln at 900 degrees, let it slowly cool down to room temperature over about 12 to 20 hours. And then those colors will be a lot more vibrant once
Okay.
they're not 900 degrees anymore.
Okay.
So I'm going to take one more heat, and then I will meet you and Kendall over at this knockoff station over here.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll just smooth out the bottom and make sure it's nice and round, no sharp spots.
Okay.
Okay.
Yay.
Right.
Okay. Let's go.
He's going to come from right here and knock off. So I think if you guys stand just right about here next
Okay.
to
Okay.
yeah.
Pretty cool, right?
So similarly to when you did that little drop of water to transfer it, she's just doing a little precise drop of water, shocking it thermally to break it off on purpose.
And so then we have these nice little vermiculite boards, which are often what jewelers use for soldering. So they have a really high heat tolerance,
Okay.
like 1500 degrees high. And so I'm able to rest this on there, making sure that we have a nice spot where we're not going to deform the lip of your cup at all. So what I'm going to do is just use this torch, which is a blend of propane and oxygen, to smooth out the sharp spot. You have one final step.
Okay.
What you're going to do when I come over with the torch is just take the butt of these tweezers, that round part, and just smooth out that sharp spot there.
Oh, so I use the
Yep.
butt?
Yeah,
Nice.
there you go.
Oh yeah.
All right,
That's it.
perfect. All right, so Kendall's going to grab this with these tongs. We're going to walk on over here to this kiln. We've got this nice drinking glass. And maybe we'll do this side.
Yeah. There's room.
We're going to pop it in there with the other make your own objects from the day. Let it slowly cool down over about 12 hours. And we'll have a cup.
Yay!
Oh my God. Here,
That was awesome.
Throw glove on. Okay.
So, oh my gosh, ladies. Thank you so much
Yeah, thank you. That was
for
fun.
taking me through that.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not amazing, everybody. Like, it's just, I'm just in awe because it's this process. And like you said often, it's this dance and it's the understanding that things will break.
Mhm.
Things will not work out.
No.
Things won't go as planned because I mean, there's a structure, but there's also a fluidness. Right?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most humbling materials, right? Where like that went really well. It does not always go really well. There are often times, I mean, we were making some cups earlier and you can see one of them is broken in the dish over there. And another one's broken over here. Yeah. it's humbling. It allows you to kind of get back up and do it again, and then do it again.
Fail gracefully.
Yeah.
Fail gracefully.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So as we wrap this up, if each of you could tell me, we'll start with you, Katie, why do you think creativity is important?
I think it's a way to find joy in every day. You know, if you look at things through a creative lens, you can find a positive outlook somehow, some way, maybe.
Beautiful.
That was a good one. She stole mine.
Sorry.
You can elaborate or
I
whatever.
would say, yeah, like for me, it's more of just that lifeblood. Like creativity is the choices you make every day. So I think thinking about everyday occurrences in a creative way can be helpful and almost help you make good choices and discover what you need to discover on your path of life, maybe.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How beautiful
That was
is that,
good.
everybody, to end? Discover what you discover. So everybody, just be curious. Try things that are out of your comfort zone. This was way out of my comfort zone. And thank you for making this easy. And yeah, just discover. So thank you, everybody. See you next time. So this is so exciting. Waited a few days and got the email that it's ready, and it's like the holidays, you know? So this process is just, there's a waiting period, you know? So here you have the adventure, and when I picked it up, bag with my name on it. When you pick it up, it's kind of like there's an anticipation. So let's see. Look at that! Wow. Ooh. So the colors, like what's so cool is it's complete surprise. So when you look at it, like, look, there's all of these swirls and pockets of color with these little hints of this yellow here and there. And the beauty is that with the whole heat up process and everything, you don't know how the colors are going to interact and how they're going to mix. This is something that didn't exist before, and now it does. It's something I can take home and actually use. So I am so grateful. Thank you so much, Wheaton Arts, for providing this space for people to be able to have these experiences. And thank you so much to Katie and to Kendall for helping me along to be able to actually make this a real thing. So this is Hollis Citron. Go out and do your thing. Those things that make you a little nervous, go out and do it because it's completely worth it.